is Bean to Barstool, a podcast that looks at the intersections of craft beer and craft chocolate. My name is David Nilsson. I'm a professional beer writer and an advanced cicerone, and the creator and host of this show. The music for this episode is by my dear friend, indie folk musician Anna P.S. You can find out more about Anna's music in the show notes or at her website, annapsmusic.com. You can find links and information about our guests in the show notes as well. I hope you enjoy this episode of Bean to Barstool. Hello, everyone. Today's episode is a look back at my favorite beers and chocolates of 2023. I always love doing this episode every year. Be prepared for fanciful sensory descriptions and nostalgic memories. You'll also hear from several friends and colleagues in the beer and chocolate worlds who share their own favorites from the last year as well. Let's just jump right in. We said goodbye to 2022 and toasted the new year at midnight on January 1st with Scratch Single Tree Hickory. This sour ale is brewed with just about every part of a hickory tree, all foraged from Scratch's Illinois property. The bright tartness that announces the beer diminishes slowly to reveal warm, rich hickory wood and leaves. The acidity recedes to the shade and undergrowth and halos the complexity of this most evocative of woods. I can't think of a better way to have greeted 2023. On New Year's Day, we opened Zebulon's original IPA circa 1840. Zebulon Artisan Ales in North Carolina is consistently taking on some of the coolest brewing projects, and their effort here to brew a beer similar to some of the first true India Pale Ales of the early 19th century is a great example. The beer is brewed with 100% Maris Otter malt and East Kent Golding hops, fermented with a Burton yeast strain, and aged for a year in oak with Brettanomyces. The beer is startlingly clear. It just shines in the glass. The aroma balances bready malt with light minerality and acidity and a touch of earthy funk. On the tongue, it's very bitter, 160 calculated IBUs, but an old-world bitterness without the palate-filling quality of Pacific Northwest hops and a more planty, tea-like flavor to the hops. Bread, white pepper, and pear pudding show through as well. It's widely understood Orval Trappist Ale is a Belgian adaptation of older English pale ales, and you can see the relationship clearly here. I want more of this. I've been friends with beer writer and fellow advanced cicerone Mandy Naglich for many years since we were both first getting started as beer writers. This year, Mandy's first book was published, How to Taste, and I had the chance to interview her for Bean to Barstool back in the summer, so be sure to check that out. Here's Mandy sharing some of her favorite beers of 2023.
Hi, David. This is Mandy Naglich. I'm excited to tell you about a couple memorable beers from 2023 this year. A lot of my beer memories are coming from tastes of place this year, so less about discovering new styles and things like that, and more about being excited to try what everyone's drinking around me. I was lucky to go to Nicaragua this year and have my first Tonya, and then very excited to find Tonya throughout the U.S., including in Lexington, Kentucky. So now it brings a smile to my face and reminds me of those sunshine rays by the shore in Nicaragua with a just nice standard lager that is very well made, but nothing special in the beer style, more special in the memories. And then the same thing with drinking beer in Japan. You know, it's kind of a when in Rome thing, and everyone's drinking light lagers, very, very dry light lagers in Japan. So I enjoyed a lot of them there, and I will never look at Asahi Super Dry the same way after 2023. Another perennial favorite, but really stood out to me in 2023 was an Allagash Interlude. They've been making that beer for years, but I, on book tour, got to stop at Allagash and have a 2017 bottle up there. And that combination of Brettanomyces and aging in red wine is just a really special flavor combination that I get excited about every time, and no different in 2023. But another touchstone memory just to kind of accentuate how special it is to be on book tour, to have these beer memories I've been forming throughout my career, researching and appreciating this fine beverage. So I wouldn't say there's a ton of new things that stood out to me in 2023, but it's a very nice reflection on all of the things I've discovered about beer so far and how they continue to be special across cultures. At home drinking moments are just something that we have to savor and remember. So I hope everyone heads into 2024 with some great memories that they savored around a table, whether it's just a plain old dry lager or something as special as a red wine barrel aged Brettanomyces beer. So cheers to that.
In November, Melinda and I took a long overdue trip to Europe, our first since before the pandemic, and had more great beers than I can list here, so I'll just pick a few. The best known brewery in Bamberg, Germany is Schlenkerla, and it was definitely worth the hype. The space is rustic and cozy despite the crowds, and we enjoyed getting to try one-offs that never make it to the States, such as Weichel, a beautiful cherry wood smoked rot beer with toasty caramel and soft, sweet, woolly smoke notes. I want to go in every season and taste their rotating rarities. Weyermann Specialty Malts has a pilot brewing system, and they offer a lot of unique beers from the system in their shop in Bamberg as a way to demonstrate what their malt can do. It's such a cool idea and an opportunity to taste some really unique beers. We tasted their smoky pale ale using citrusy American hops and smoked malt, and the interplay between those two influences was fascinating and delightful. If I could go back and repeat one experience from the trip, it would be this, and I'd bring friends along, buy a bunch of these one-off bottles, and taste through them on the small patio. Among the many well-known breweries in Bamberg, Klosterbrau was not one I was terribly familiar with before doing research before our recent trip. It's a bit out of the way. It takes several zigs and zags from the main pedestrian routes through the town's maze-like streets and alleys to even find it, but the search was worth it. I ordered their Haus Rausch beer, what else for the first pint in Bamberg, and it was lovely. It's not the standard Rausch beer built on März and bones, though. It's quite dark, like a strong Schwarz beer, with a bit more bite. A touch of licorice and dry chocolate flits in behind the savory sweet smoke. We paired it with apple strudel in the late morning on our first day, and it was perfect. While we drank mostly traditional lagers in Prague and the Czech Republic, we couldn't resist checking out the country's growing craft scene. On a rain-soaked evening wandering through the maze of Old Town, we finally found our destination, U Kunstatu. No idea if that's pronounced right. A beer bar in a 12th century building offering an extensive bottle list of 21st century Czech craft. We grabbed a 750 of Pilsen's Pivovar Raven Morrigan Dry Irish Stout and sat under a large umbrella in the courtyard as rain hammered the canvas and lamplight glinted off the wet cobblestones. The beer was perfect for the moment, which is all we can ever ask a beer to be. I was pleased to get to know Amanda Camp while giving a talk for craft beer professionals earlier this year, which led to another engagement for the Women's Craft Fermentation Summit later in the year. Amanda is a talented and enthusiastic PR professional, and here she shares a few of her favorite beers from the last year.
Hey, David! I am so excited to share some of my favorite beers of this year with you. In no particular order, I'm starting with American Brown by Civil Life Brewing Company out of St. Louis, Missouri. I love a good brown ale, and this is one of my go-to beers when I'm out so that I can try it with different food pairings. It goes well with so many different things. My second is from Giant Jones Brewing Company in Madison, Wisconsin. I got to visit their tap room over the summer, and while everything was fabulous there, I was blown away by their Golden Strong Ale. It's definitely one of my favorite versions of this style. Plus, the label is absolutely killer. My next two are both from Scratch Brewing Company in Ava, Illinois. Their Basil IPA and their Strawberry Rhubarb Sour Ale prove that there are really cool things that you can do in the world of forage brewing. Then again, strawberry rhubarb is one of my favorite flavor combinations, as well as being a nostalgic thing from my childhood, so anyone that can do that well automatically jumps to the top of my list. To cap it all off, my go-to dessert beer is, and might forever be, Lindemann's Framboise, especially that decadent balance of the sweet and tart with the raspberry. Can't beat it. Then again, it is hard to beat a 200-year-old brewery. Either way, thank you so much for listening to my end of the year picks. Cheers to all of the amazing beers we've had this year, and cheers to all the great brews and conversations in the next.
I once again had the opportunity to travel to Denver this fall to cover the Great American Beer Festival and the Denver Rare Beer Tasting for porch drinking. I tasted an astonishing number of very good beers and more than a few bad ones, but a few good ones really stood out. Mounds of Importance, it was a collaboration between Cincinnati area breweries Third Eye and Narrow Path, and was built on Third Eye's former gold medal winning milk stout Higher Purpose. It's brewed with Narrow Path's uniquely toasted coconut, and it's absolutely glorious. It ended up winning silver in the collab category at GABF to prove it. Deschutes Hachimatsumai Honey Rice Lager might have been my favorite beer I had at GABF, an incredibly bright lager brewed with puffed jasmine rice, Chilean Olmo honey, and almost no hops. Flavors of toasted brown rice, violet candy, and honeycomb, and a quiet bouquet of other florals flitting in and out. My notes in my tasting journal started with, "Fuck, that's good," and that about sums it up. One of the weirdest but best beers I had at JBF was Fieldwork Watermelon Pulp IPA. It's exactly as advertised. Lots of watermelon pulp and rind in a citrusy, hazy IPA. Weird, but bright and delicious. If this were available near me, I would drink it all summer long. The Denver Rare Beer tasting is a fundamental absurdity. You're handed a tasting glass and given 4 hours to try as many unbelievably rare beers as you want. And you don't taste most of them, walking right past tables of beers you'll never be offered again because there's just too much to try. Cerebral's Vanilla Rye Here Be Monsters, a liquid tribute to the vanilla orchid, stood above the rest for me. Cerebral head brewer Sean Buchan will be on an upcoming episode to talk about his use of exotic vanillas in brewing. While in Denver, I got to hang out with colleague Emma Wargalet, one of the editors at Porch Drinking and an all-around great human being. Here's Emma to quickly share her list of her favorite beers from 2023.
Hey, David, it's Emma Wargalet. Got a lot of too many beers this year that I loved, but some top ones were Entitled to Mingle out of Hacienda Beer Company. They are based in Bailey's Harbor, Wisconsin. It's a Saison. Next up was White Picket Fence, another Saison, but out of Bellwoods Brewery that is based in Toronto. And then finally, we have Arabella, that is a dark brown sour from Purpose Brewing that is based out of Fort Collins, Colorado.
We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, Final Gravity Issue 5 is now available in the shop on beantobarstool.com. This 5th issue of our zine telling personal, human-centered stories from the world of beer is full of great articles. Bano Segudu tells the story of the South African beer style Umkombothi, poignantly explaining its role in her culture and the importance in her family's celebrations and milestones. Maria Krugliak writes about discovering the Portuguese half pint after moving to Portugal during the COVID-19 pandemic. Amanda Bruns and Obakeng Malope discuss the water spirit Mamuhaswa and the collaboration beer they brewed in her honor. These and numerous other stories fill the 56 pages of this zine. We've expanded it and added a few features for this issue. It's full color, full of lots of beautiful photography and art. Definitely check this out. It's on beantobarstool.com/shop. You can purchase this issue or subscribe, and you can always support us on Patreon and get extra perks as well. Cheers. I tasted a lot of amazing craft chocolate bars this year, and I was surprised looking back at my favorites how many were single origin bars. I think in previous years, inclusion bars have been a larger percentage of this list, but the single origins, the backbone of Bean to Bar chocolate, stood out to me this year. Speaking of standing out, let's start with Standout Chocolate's Sambarano Madagascar 70% dark chocolate bar. The gloss on this bar is almost reflective. It's so shiny, and it gives a correspondingly hard snap and slow melt on the tongue. As soon as I opened the package and smelled the bar, I wrote down, "This smells like sunlight." I realized that's thoroughly unhelpful, and I don't know what to tell you. I saw late morning sun shining over low mountains, a warm valley dotted with trees. The bar's slow melt delivers honey with a warming, fruity acidity carrying red berry, pomegranate, and orange peel as it slowly and silkily dissolves. Monsoon Chocolate's Bachelor's Hall Estate Jamaica 85% dark chocolate bar was, surprisingly, my first ever Monsoon bar. A lovely green floral garden aroma leads off with notes of lily bud and beetle leaf with faint nutmeg and walnut skin. The palate, however, is more indulgent with cashew butter and frangipane, golden brownie, and toasted Nilla wafer. Such a unique and intriguing bar from a maker I knew I needed to get to know better. I eventually got to interview founder Adam Krantz, and you can listen to that in episode 71. Chocolarder Virunga Eastern Congo 75% was my first bar from Chocolarder. Spicy florals in the aroma belie fudgy, nutty, brownie batter flavors. Some sweet floral notes, grassiness, and a bit of oak in the finish, along with very mild young strawberry notes. Pump Street Crayfish Bay Organic Estate St. Mark Grenada 70% is such a lovely and unique bar. The aroma hints at notable acidity with hits of tart blueberry, pomegranate, and dried cranberry, with supporting aromas of granola and almond. The flavor is bright but not as acidic as the nose indicated. Sweet blueberry and candy cherry, muffin top, and blackberry. My single favorite bar from this year has quite a story behind it, a story I hope to help tell in 2024. My friend London Coe moved heaven and earth to source chocolate from Stranger Chocolate, a Ukrainian maker, in 2023, and I'm so grateful she did. Their Dominican Republic Oco Caribe 70% dark bar is gorgeous. The bar is thick and sturdy with a hard snap, but melts silkily with notes of honey and red juju fruit and fig, with rich and regal classic dark chocolate all around. Just a touch of salt on the finish. It's amazing to think something this poised and graceful came out of an area of the world being torn apart by violence. This year, I got to know chocolate educator and expert on all things wine and chocolate, Estelle Tracy, who runs 37 Chocolates, leading chocolate tastings and pairings. You can listen to episode 58 to hear us geek out on pairing chocolate with beer and wine. Here she is sharing her favorite chocolate bars of 2023.
Well, hi, David. Thanks for asking me about some of my favorite bars of the year. There are a few that come to mind. Comes to yumminess in 2023. My best surprise of the whole year is a bar from a small town, a village outside of Paris, village of 750 people. And the name of the company is L'Artisan du Chocolat. It turns out we went to the same high school with the founder, Abdel, and his 78% Haiti is phenomenal. That's probably my favorite bar of the year. With that, there are a couple more that I wanted to give a shout out to. Two I want to give a shout out. They are winners from the Craft Chocolate Challenge of 2023. The first one is Fjorden Chocolate from Norway. 70% dark chocolate made with beans from Mana in the Philippines. That definitely was contender to the Haiti bar from France. A beautiful surprise. There's a lot. I love the packaging. More on that later. But yes, definitely a great surprise. Then the third bar I can think of is another winner from the Craft Chocolate Challenge. It is a white caramel chocolate from Blue Spruce Chocolates in Colorado. The packaging is pretty basic. It's like a sleeve. This might not be a bar I would have been drawn to just because of the packaging. But the moment you open the sleeve, you have this massive width of like caramel and hazelnuts. It smelled very fresh. And one thing that stood out about this bar is that there is a heirloom beet sugar, Dutch beet sugar in the chocolate. And now that I tasted the chocolate, I guess I'm a convert to this Dutch beet sugar. But Blue Spruce Chocolates really makes a fantastic white chocolate. And that was a beautiful surprise here.
Down an impossibly narrow alley in Bruges, Belgium, sits De Gar, a little bar whose house triple has an unofficial 3-round limit. At 11.5% ABV, it's both potent and palliative. This used to be the only place in the world to get it, and where I first tried it nearly a decade ago, but it can now be found here and there at America's best beer bars. On a sunny May day in Chicago, Melinda and I spent some time in Hopleaf, a Belgian beer lover's heaven up in Andersonville, and holding the Degar glass and taking that first sip of this powerful beer just felt right. It felt like we'd gone farther than Illinois to get it, for sure. I got the chance to write an ode to this beer in the eponymous bar for Pellicle. I'll link to it in the show notes. Speaking of Belgian beer, I forgot how good La Trappe Quadruple is. Our favorite local beer bar, the Barrel House, had the beer on, and we got it in a flight on a lovely spring evening. It's perfect. This was the last beer we had on the final night of our last trip to Belgium several years back, and I need to have it more often. New Zealand writer Luke Owen Smith is one of the only other people I know who regularly writes about both beer and chocolate, and I had him on the show back in episode 37 to talk about the New Zealand beer and chocolate scene. Here he is sharing his favorite beers and chocolates of the last year.
Hi David. So a couple of my favorite beers this year. First up, I've got the Siding with Chaos Against Good Order, which is made by Small Gods. It's my friends Luke and Matt in Auckland, and they make some really unique and interesting beers. This was a Pilsner that got barrel-aged with Brettanomyces yeast for 5 months. So it's kind of traditional Pilsner, but then made wild and funky and came out this incredibly complex tropical brioche delight. It was, nothing like anything I'd ever tasted. And then my second beer I've chosen is Penina, which is a new non-alcoholic beer from the team at Living Cocoa in Melbourne. And they've made a APA style with cacao husks. So very different to other non-alcoholic beers I've had, and I really like how the cacao adds a lot of depth and complexity that can sometimes be missing with non-alcoholic beers. Really impressed with that. For my chocolate bars, I've chosen first up the Nibbo Decapon Cream Cheese 60% Dark Milk, which is Nibbo, a Chinese maker that I first discovered when I was judging the International Chocolate Awards, the Asia Pacific competition. And this bar, I'm not a huge milk chocolate eater, but I've never tasted a bar anything like this. Just incredible texture and flavor, and I really, really recommend people check out Nibbo chocolate. It's not easy to find, but it's well worth searching for. And then last up, I've got the Baron Hasselhoff's Papua New Guinea 70%, which is made by my friend Clayton here in Wellington. He's been doing bean to bar for a few years now, but this was his first single origin bar. He'd kind of been honing his craft and mastering it before releasing a just 2 ingredient bar. And it was absolutely incredible, really showcasing the best of the beans coming out of Papua New Guinea right now. Things are really changing and the quality is improving there and many other Pacific islands. So it's just exciting to see this development, and I hope the rest of the world will realize the Pacific has something special to offer with cacao and chocolate. Okay, thanks David. Bye.
My friend Tyler Cagwin at Nostalgia Chocolates sent me Wren House Brewing's Black Excellence, a beer brewed with his cacao. This Imperial Stout is a 3-way collaboration between Wren House, Brews Brothers, and Eastern Market Brewing, and features coffee, cacao, and vanilla, all from Africa. A celebration of black excellence, which this beer definitely is. The aroma leads with fresh and spicy coffee and dark milk chocolate, with a touch of roasted grain and a hint of a mild dark fruit, dates perhaps, coming in behind. The coffee is more restrained on the palate and blends in with the chocolate, with the vanilla in support. The body is dry but ample, and there's some gentle roast acidity that's just enough to accentuate the hop and roast bitterness without jumping out. There are some mild fruit notes from the cacao. It really is excellent. At GABF, I tried another great chocolate beer, Radiant Beer's Luxurious Potential. This Black Forest cake-inspired bourbon barrel-aged Imperial Stout weighs in at 14% ABV, and is brewed with a blend of Tanzanian cocoa cameli and Fijian Raki cacao ribs from Chocolate Alchemy, as well as Comoros and Tahitian vanilla beans and Montmorency cherries. The final beer is blended from Woodford Reserve 15-year and Weller 12-year bourbon barrels. Some alchemy of the ingredients gave the impression of rum and maple-soaked raisins covered in dark milk chocolate with vanilla and a hint of coconut, likely from the cherries and oak. Despite its heft, it finishes just dry enough to make you want another sip. My notes finished. This is how you do it. This summer, my friend John Nogsky, head brewer at Fifth Street Brew Pub here in Dayton, brewed a couple different beers using cacao pulp from Cocoa Supply. This is such an exciting new ingredient, and I had the chance to talk with Lila Carvajal-Urker at Cocoa Supply a couple times this year for episodes 62 and 66. These beers were absolutely fascinating, so definitely check out those episodes to learn more about this cacao pulp. One of the best friends I've made in the world of chocolate is Shay Powell. I always come away from a conversation with Shay with a smile on my face as her enthusiasm for flavor and craft are infectious. Here she is to share her favorite chocolate bars from 2023.
Thanks once again, David, for this opportunity to speak about my top 2 bars of 2023. This time has been so different, unlike the other years, where both bars are made with Mexican cacao and by Mexican bean-to-bar makers. Well, the first one is a bar from Cielo Dentro, which looks so brown that you could mistake it for a milk chocolate. But that's the beauty of this Criollo Almendra Blanca bean. It's infused with Tobaciche mezcal and manzanilla, or chamomile, for those who don't know. Full of herbaceous aromas, this bar is a beautiful balance of earthy notes combined with smoke from the wild-growing mezcal agave. The second one, on the other hand, is a special edition bar from Cuna di Pietra. Using a fusion of hibiscus curvature and a layer of smoked heirloom chile, it's spicy, tart, and mouth-watering at the same time. So there you go, my favorite 2 bars of 2023, where both are nothing but perfect examples of balanced flavors.
In May, we spent a weekend in Cleveland to check out their beer scene and ended up more in love with the city than we expected to be. We spent a long evening at Noble Beast, one of the best breweries in the state, laughing and drinking with friends, and I mostly stuck to their Pivot Grodziskie. There is something magical about a 3.5% ABV beer that's packed full of flavor. Grodziskie is a weird style, light, crisp, and smoky. Made with smoked malt but with a lighter touch than Bamberg's Rausch beer. Grodziskie or Gratzer is an easy drinking style meant to be consumed in volume but nonetheless packs a wallop of flavor. I want a beer like this around all the time. At the other end of the spectrum is Far From the Tree from Masthead Brewing in downtown Cleveland. This 14.3% Imperial Stout is aged in a single apple brandy barrel blended with maple wheat wine. I wrote in my notes, caramel and raisin and apple, oh my. Milk chocolate and caramel-covered raisins with a glaze of maple sugar. Not too sweet, not hot, so good. While it's a beer I know better than almost any other, getting to drink a Great Lakes Edmund Fitzgerald Porter on the brewery's patio on a gorgeous May afternoon was a memorable experience. We also visited New York City this fall to see Lauren Mayberry on her first solo show and check out as much great beer as we could in a short weekend. When we visited Brooklyn Brewery's taproom in Williamsburg, I couldn't resist ordering a bottle pour of 2015 Black Ops, and it ended up being one of the best-sellered Imperial Stouts I've ever had. It hadn't lost its body and gotten hot, which is usually what I run into. An impression of dark chocolate-covered pine needles with some resilient oak and gentle bourbon made this memorable. Our biggest project this year was launching Final Gravity, our quarterly print beer zine. We're having a lot of fun and working very hard on the zine, and I really encourage you to check it out or consider supporting the project on Patreon. I was very grateful when my friend and colleague Ruveni De Silva agreed to write a personal and quite moving essay for issue 2 of Final Gravity. I always love hearing Ruveni excitedly talk about her favorite beers, so here she is to share her favorites from 2023.
We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, my book on pairing craft beer and craft chocolate is available now on Amazon and on the Bean to Barstool shop. Pairing Beer and Chocolate, a guide to bringing the flavors of craft beer and craft chocolate together, is out now. This paperback book explains the process of pairing beer and chocolate, includes a guide to hosting a pairing at home, walks through dozens of beer styles to provide style-by-style pairing guidance, and gives room for taking your own pairing notes along the way. This is the only book on pairing beer and chocolate available. Grab your copy now at the link in the show notes or on Amazon. If you manage a tap room, bookstore, chocolate shop, or cafe and want to stock the book, get in touch about our easy wholesale process. Beer and chocolate belong together, and this book is your guide to getting the most out of every pairing.
Hi, David. I have been traveling for most of this year. So unlike previous years, this is not going to be a Texas roundup. I'm going to run you through a few of my favorite beers from our extensive travels around the US. It's really been a year of sours for me. Green Bench in St. Pete does some absolutely incredible beers of all styles. Their Web City Cellar Barrel Room has some of the best sour beers that I've had sort of ever, as well as incredible ciders. So two of my favorites are the Druid, which is a double barrel aged Belgian style imperial stout made with wild yeast, rum and bourbon barrels, so 12 and then another 24-month aging. Anyone who's previously listened will know that I love sour stouts. This one really knocks it out of the park. Rich, funky all at once, dried fruit, chocolate, fudge, and then obviously warm oak. Reminds me a bit of my Jester King favorites, black metal. Also the Wilbert Dark Wild Ale aged in French red oak wine barrels, so sumptuously jammy but still tart and funky. And Hilda's Guiding Bolt Sour IPA, really a cut above any other sour IPA that I've had recently. Moving across the country now to Arizona, AZ Wilderness are just another fantastic brewery celebrating their 10-year anniversary this year, as our Green Bench. And we had some really incredible sour beers there. Their Camp Cool Ship, wild fermented on Stoic Cider Orchard property was a real standout. They take their mobile cool ship with them to a different location every year to really capture that Arizona terroir. And we were lucky to catch this one before it sold out. Really nice sherbet lychee funk. Also the Region Sauvage d'Arizona, which is a blend of young and 6-month aged saisons, kind of a Solera vibe, channeling that kind of energy. Really good. I've also been very into lagers this year. I'll just run you through a couple very quickly. Green Bench Postcard Pills, Odd Colony in Pensacola's Tidal Guide Pilsner, which is actually rested on oyster shells. Incredible minerality, mushroomy umami thing going on. Asheville Zilkoa's single hop blanc Pilsner, lemongrass, white grape, lovely stuff. And yep, I've not been in Texas much, but just quick shout outs to Vista Brewing, Seeking Sakura, Cherry Brett, and their Eclipse bourbon barrel aged Pilsner. Everyone should be making bourbon barrel aged Pilsners. Tanglefoot's amazing Czech style lagers served on Luca, especially their Tmave. Looking forward to the double. True Anomaly, amazing wild ales across the board, and a really great Impy Stout program, particularly the Raspberry Drip. And Independence, their green chili native Texan. I know, Amy, you said you're never going to do another chili beer, but please do, please.
While single origins ruled the day this year, there were a number of inclusion chocolates that got my attention as well. Chocobien's 70% Peru Criollo aged 12 months with Yirgacheffe coffee was the most fascinating coffee chocolate I had this year. These little chocolate buttons were aged with Ethiopian Yirgacheffe and took on so much character from these bold beans. The aroma is rich mocha, and the flavor adds some gentle spice from the coffee to that mocha base. Very fresh coffee aroma with notes of Vietnamese cinnamon. I used these little buttons in place of chocolate chips in a cookie recipe I came up with using a grassy Jamaican rum, caramelized bananas, and cinnamon, and it was fantastic. Checaset's Mashop's Smoke is a 65% dark chocolate made with elderberry oat milk and smoked Lapsang Souchong tea. The aroma is subtle but beguiling, with fresh wood smoke and a light savory meatiness. The palate takes those aromas and soaks them into its architecture, like the smell of a barn or a cabin with a fireplace in which every wood surface is saturated in the fires of decades. After that smoke recedes a bit, there's some vegetal green tea and a very quiet fruitiness and some oatmeal. The bar is cozy and evocative. I love beets, and I'm excited anytime I see a beer or chocolate made with them. Few ingredients offer a combination of earthy funk and comforting sweetness like beets. Ratza's Juju Beet Bar is an 80% dark chocolate made with beet juice, spirulina, and dried jujube dates. The bar smells like Gorp, the nutty trail mix with peanuts, raisins, and often M&Ms or chocolate chips. And there are definitely aspects of that in the flavor as well, though it moves more into dried apple chips and earthy sweet beets, with a pleasant balance of sweetness and acidity from the high cacao percentage and a bit of a vinous impression. Katerina Gallo, better known by her Instagram handle Chocombass, is one of the most enthusiastic reviewers of craft chocolate out there. Here she is to share her favorite chocolates of 2023.
So lately I tasted two very interesting bars. One is a single origin and another one is a coffee inclusion. So the single origin taste is made by Castronovo chocolate and is a Peruvian origin, Hawaiian woman, 70% rainforest cacao. So I did like this bar because it's not because it's fruity, it's very singular and particular and different from other Peruvian bar I tried. What I like the most is the spiciness because it's very distinctive and it expresses the Peruvian soul, all the spices you can find in Peru. And it is a bar with an identity, like it's truly single origin. It expresses the Peruvian culture and the Peruvian food culture. This is what I really like of it. It is for me a masterpiece. Actually, I really love it. And another one that I tried is an inclusion is the Canto limited edition. This one is made with geisha coffee, and I think maybe most likely is the best coffee inclusion I have tried because geisha is a particular coffee, is very expensive and is very fruity. And to me, it tastes better than Ethiopian coffee. And this is why I really like it, and I like the packaging too. She made it in collaboration with another Canadian business. Is a coffee shop over there, and the packaging is amazing. So that's it. These are my two best pick for this year.
Rabbit Brewing's hazy IPA game is on point, and they deserve more hype than they get for their demon-named hop monsters. Morningstar is all juicy tropical fruit in the aroma, sweet honeydew and cantaloupe, overripe mango, with just a hint of diesel. The flavor adds a bit of grapefruit zest and just enough bitterness to balance it all out. There's only so much you can say about an excellent hazy that hasn't already been said, but there's only so much you need to when it tastes this good. On a sunny Saturday afternoon in early March, we hung out at the Yellow Springs patio, sipping Haiku to Ninkasi, their excellent Japanese rice lager with Cascade hops brewed for International Women's Day. The beer is brewed in collaboration with Urban Artifact, who brewed a separate beer called Susie and Jane, and benefits a women's scholarship to the Cincinnati State Brewing Science Program. The beer was amazing, crisp and snappy with floral hop notes and a bready but light malt foundation. Perfect for sipping in the sun on an early spring day. I spent some time at Warped Wing Brewing's downtown Dayton tap room on a sunny April afternoon before an evening event I was leading across town and had their gorgeous Pilot Series Dusseldorf Alt beer. The Pilot Series is for small batch, draft-only beers and gives Warped Wings brewers a chance to brew classic styles that might not sell well enough for packaging. The beer poured a beautiful burnished copper color, and the impression of malt sweetness up front is whisked away by moderate bitterness and a dry finish. Toasty, mildly spicy, perfect. Hailstorm Midwest Madness is a perfect old-school Midwest IPA. The 2017 GABF Gold Medal American IPA offers pine, orange peel, and pith, and candied grapefruit with sticky malt holding it all together, but it's not too sweet. Hailstorm is just a few minutes away from my in-laws' house, so we stopped in this summer and tried this. 2009 never tasted so good. Every summer we visit friends in Northwest Indiana, which means we've gotten to know a lot of the breweries up there over many years of visits. This July we stopped in at Fuzzy Line in Highland, and I fell hard for a matcha latte beer with matcha, lactose, vanilla, and honey. It sounds like a mess, but it's brewed with restraint and a thoughtful eye from concept to finished beer. I had more than one. Back in 2018, Fifth Street Brew Pub here in Dayton brewed a Belgian dark strong ale called Pappy Schmitty and Dam. It was aged in Pappy Van Winkle barrels and was a bit hot when it first came out that year, but time has treated it well. We opened it with a friend on a late summer evening this year. Fresh caramel and vanilla with some sweet bourbon supported the core notes of the beer, fruit tape and rummy baked brioche French toast. Most beers shouldn't be aged. This one is proof of concept that a few really do benefit from it. Finally, no one knows Belgian beer quite like Allagash Brewing. Foliage Report is an autumn ale for marketing purposes, but it's actually a classic Belgian double and one of the best I've had in a while. Toasty grain and a mulled mix of prune and plum that just smells Belgian. Full on the tongue but light on the finish. An impression of sweet fruit leather that flies down into bready, toasty grain with a dry finish. Gently mouth-warming after a few sips. This is perfect. I've got blog posts up on beantobarstool.com for my favorite beers and chocolates of the year if you want to browse through them in print, and a separate post for my favorite beer and chocolate pairings as well. I didn't include those on the year-end episode this year, so that's the only place you'll be able to find those. If you've enjoyed Bean to Barstool in 2023, I would like to ask you a favor. Please leave a review of this show on your favorite podcast platform and share it with your friends on social media. I'd love to see the show grow and reach new audiences. You can also check out the Bean to Barstool shop for zines and beer photography and support us on Patreon. I'd also love to hear your favorite beers and chocolates of the year, so drop me a line at beantobarstool@gmail.com or at beantobarstool on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or Pinterest. Thanks to my friends who recorded their own favorites for this show. You can find links to their websites in the show notes. I hope you all have a peaceful holiday season. Thanks for listening to Bean to Barstool. I'll see you all in 2024.